Hey, hello, my friends. How are you doing? I hope everything works. Yes, I'm very red. I think it's maybe the shirt. Maybe we can adjust this in a second. Let me greet the people here. Also, whoops, that's too big. 1 second. There we go. Hi, Gianna. Thanks for supporting my channel by becoming a member on my YouTube membership, I think it's called. Hi, Eric from Vienna Meidling. Thanks for joining. Woo, a shadow here. Okay. Hi, Tony. How are you doing? I'm fine. How are you? Are Arjan, hi from Holland. How are you doing? Thanks for joining. Jens from Bavaria, hi. Thanks for joining. Metal Moss, interesting name. Hi. Hi, Ian from the UK. Ian, probably, I guess. Hi, Leo from Holland. All right. Wow, I'm also very glistening. Do we have anything here to wipe my face a little bit? I look like a crystal ball. You can rub me and tell the future. Woo! Okay. This is what happens when you haven't streamed for a time. Everything's a little bit crazy. There we go. There we go. All right, that's already a little bit better. Oh man, it's already crazy again. Like always in my streams, like always. There we go. Johan from Holland, how high are you doing? Gary from Ireland and Andreas from Vienna. Hi, both of you. How are you doing? Awesome. By the way, I have realized that on other streams, there's like this pop-up when people watch that how long they have been a member of the channel. Maybe if you are a member of the channel, you see a thing where you can announce that you are still a member. I don't know. And you can click that and it's kind of popping up in the chat. I've seen on other live streams that pops up, but not in mine. So I don't know what's going on, but it would be cool. It looks amazing. So yeah. All right. So as you know, I have been in London and I've been in Los Angeles in the last 3 weeks. Yes, 3 weeks. That's right. Just to learn, basically. It was just both of them business. I didn't really take many photos, not in Los Angeles because there I didn't have any time at all. Maybe I should have booked 1 or 2 more days to maybe take some photos. And in London, it was also, yeah, mostly business. I had one day where I took photos, and that was the only day where it was raining. The only day. It was amazing. And then, yeah, I didn't have time the other day. That I also plan to take photos because the subway, they made a big strike, all the people who work for the subway. So I had to go to the airport basically a day early. So just to like not miss my flight. So yeah. All right. The rest of the day I was just like meeting people and learning things, stuff like that. All right. And so, of course, I want to tell you a little bit about that. Of course, you can also ask questions. About that. Mostly it's about like what I'm doing on YouTube and all these kind of things. And that was mostly in Los Angeles because there was a conference it's called the VidCon. It's about YouTube and all the kind of social media things. Instagram, TikTok is very big, of course. So there have been some people there and they have different lectures, basically different talks. I have to try next time to maybe be a guest talker. That would be also nice to do that. And it's interesting to see when you grow your business that, like, I have been on the VidCon in London 2 or 3 years ago, and I went to different lectures. You know, you need different kind of information, which is really interesting. When you start out, you need a certain set of information, and then you move on and you need a different set of information because then what you have learned at the beginning, of course, now you understand that, but you don't know how to get to the next step. You can't, like, it's really interesting how seeing the next things you need to do, the next things you should work on is it's not easy if you have never done it. If you lack the experience, understanding the information is very complex, right? Which is good, which is interesting also because it's a situation where it is easier for me to see the learning process. You know what I mean? Because if I do my channel, for me it's often kind of hard to understand what what you need, what kind of information do you need at the moment, because I've done it for so long that for me everything is like yeah, that's how you do it. Everything is like already there. So what are the next steps? Because you go step by step by step upwards. So where do you build on that, right? So that's very interesting. Did I miss someone here? Let me see. Have I already said hi to Joanne from Holland? How are you doing? And Andreas from Vienna. Hi. Thanks for joining. Yeah, and of course, also a little bit talk about the different developments in like what is changing for photography and how we interact with each other. As you know, you can also ask me things. That would be nice. And also, sorry that the stream is a little bit impromptu, a little bit spontaneous. I hope that's okay. I should have like announced it maybe a week ago. That would have made more sense. But I wasn't sure if I'm going to stream today. So yeah, it's a little bit impromptu. I hope that's okay. All right. It feels very strange if you haven't streamed for a long time, which is not that long. It's like, well, did I stream the last time before I went? I don't think I did. So it's like I haven't streamed for a month probably, right? So that's interesting. Also, I have realized that I haven't done any like creative videos, if you know, on my channel, because I recorded everything before I went, and then I only cut them on my laptop during the trip and upload that. So I haven't done any creative projects on my channel in quite some time. So I need to do that too, because most of the videos have been more technical recently, which is also interesting. But yeah, creativity is, of course, also inspiration is a pretty big part of that. All right. So what should we start with, basically? Should we start with like changes to photography or like plans for the channel, or what is kind of thing that is interesting to you? What kind of topic can we dive into first? All right. Maybe I can also show you something on the screen. Oh, by the way, I thought I'm gonna do a different video also about photography, because so far I have done photography on how do you take better pictures. But I thought, especially during this trip, maybe you don't have to take better pictures. Maybe you just want to take pictures sometimes, because it's also with me. These plant pictures that look very good, this is only when I shoot specific locations with a specific idea, but not with I'm running along and I'm just seeing something nice, but I don't have time. I'm just like snap in the middle of the airport or whatever, because I want to like capture the memory, but it doesn't have to be good photo, So I was thinking maybe that could also be a video. Like, yeah, it can be crappy. It can be a bad photo. It doesn't, no, that's no problem, It depends on what kind of occasion it is you photograph for. What's the reason behind the picture, right? And who do you want to show it afterwards too, right? Hi, Marcos. How are you doing? Thanks for joining. I don't. Yeah. Anyways. Okay. So yeah, that is one element. By the way, I also tried in my newest video to do it a little bit differently, as you've seen. So I cut the outro. There's no music outro with the little thingy playing and the website which I have turned off at the moment anyways. And then I put these other things that I usually say at the end of the video into the middle of the video. So let me know how you think that is, if that's good or not, because I look with some experts at the way it's called the audience retention. Retention means how many people are still watching at that point in the video, which is really interesting. And of course, at the end, it's like this because everybody's going. As soon as I say, that's it for today, everybody's like, okay, I'm out of here. Goodbye. And then you don't hear the important information I say afterwards. And you also don't see the, what is it called? Not the cards, the end screen where other videos are suggested, right? So that's actually not a good thing. So I thought maybe not do that. And they also said, like, just end the video and that's it. But I thought there has to be some ending, and also I want to put that information somewhere, so I put it in the middle of the video. And also I had more I'm not experienced that much with B-roll, as it's called. Like in this new video, what you can see is that I'm using supporting photos that show you what I'm saying. And that makes it easier to follow because you also have a visual cue, right? So there's a different, also another method to make these videos more engaging, more interesting, more like keeping the information and entertainment level high during the video, rather than me just talking about things right now. Which, should I do this differently? I don't know. Should I maybe I should show little clips and photos while I talk in the live stream. I don't know if that's a good idea, but you know what I mean. All right, so these are some kind of things that are like more related to the channel, right? But let me know in the chat what we should talk about. Yeah. Okay, should we wait a little bit? I'm usually talking too much. Which is like, also I realized with my when I met other people during that trip, I'm very high energy, especially when it comes to this kind of social media topic. I'm like a waterfall. I'm like blah, 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 talking all the time about these topics. Yeah. So maybe I should like slow it down a little bit, right? Once in a while, take a breath, take some time, sip some coffee. There we go. Today I have this mug here. This is from Thailand, actually. I brought this back over a year ago, I guess. Oh. Little coffee break. There we go. Okay. Anyways. So should we talk about photography or the channel? Let me know. Should we do a poll? I don't know. Should we do a poll? Is that a good idea? There's like a thing on the side where you can type. You can interact. It's live. I can't see you, but I can read the text. That's the only way we can interact. You can use that. Man, I'm still like I'm looking like bacon. That's not great. Where's the thingy? I don't somehow. 1 second. There should be some. Oh, there it is. Let me use this real quick so I don't look kind of too crazy here. Bacon boy. There we go. Let's put this on a little bit. Let me quickly. Okay, so Andreas says photography. Hi Christian, how are you doing? Thanks for joining. I'll put this on to make me a little bit more or let's say less reflective, so you don't like. There we go. That's already better. All right. Okay. Okay. Starting with photography would be good. Okay, we can do that. Yes. All right. Eric also says photography is a good start. I found. Ian says starting with photography would be good. So let's do that. Everybody is for photography. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, cool. I have already talked about that a little bit in my video for the VidCon, which I still should maybe change the thumbnail, because I guess most people who are about photography don't know the VidCon, because it's about, as the title says, about video. But of course, all the rage on the event was the metaverse, so to speak. But let me explain it a little bit more, because it sounds very strange what it is. But so there's these two, like, how do you say, terms. On the one side is metaverse, which is promoted like right now in a really crazy and very hard to understand way. And then there is the Internet of Things. You probably have heard Internet of Things. And the only thing that means is that everything you're using, or most of the devices you're using, are connected to the internet, right? They are not just connected to the internet, because the internet, when you hear internet, usually what you think is browser, websites, Facebook, all these kind of things that we interact with. But of course, machines also interact with each other over the internet, right? So if you have an Internet of Things, that means that these things can talk to each other. And that, of course, makes them more connected. Not just in your own home, which is the classic thing. You have a computer, you have a printer, they talk to each other, right? So that's already a connection. But if you have, let's say you have a computer, but then you have a printer in your office, for example, in a different building, this goes through the internet, but they still have to talk to each other, right? So that's like one of these applications, for example. So if you have more things or everything that is connected with each other, you can basically synchronize them and you can do more things with each other. And people can be, for example, in remote places and still work with you, interact with you. And this has become a lot more interesting now with the pandemic. We have kind of had a test case where people work from home but still work together as if they are in the same office, basically, right? So how does this relate to photography? Of course, that's a big question. Probably in your mind right now, you're like, what is he talking about? So of course, pictures are a big part of in the way we communicate with each other, right? So right now, we can, of course, already connect, for example, devices with each other. Like, for example, maybe you have realized that when you have a smart TV, which most of the TVs today are, and you have your smartphone, and they are in the same Wi-Fi, you can simply click on a button and you see the screen of your phone or like the video on YouTube on your big screen, right, on your TV. So you can just send it to another device and then you can show your photos, basically. You can have a Google photo on your screen and just like show on any screen where you're in the same Wi-Fi, for example. So that can be pretty interesting, these kind of things. Robert says, hi, Olivio, please can you make some videos about quickly correcting images like dust spots, objects you want removed, dark sections? I have already made a video like that. After 20 years, but I should make a new video. Like I have old videos that are a little bit outdated maybe, and I should update that. So that's a good point. After 20 years of RAW, now I mainly shoot in JPEG. Interesting. Look at that. Yeah. Maybe also probably because of the change of technology, right? Because now things are so good, especially with smartphones, that you don't really need to edit much afterwards because it's basically done automatically for you in the device. So, yeah, right? Or maybe, I don't know, maybe your photography skills have become so good that you don't have to change much afterwards. But let's come back to the topic. So when you connect, okay, so we have the Internet of Things where everything is connected with each other. And then we have the metaverse. Now, what is the metaverse? It sounds really strange. And you have like Mark Zuckerberg is showing these really cringy kind of videos where they are like kind of surfing in 3D world and they have a 3D house and like for no reason. Why do you need a digital pool that you can swim in with your avatar? That makes no sense at all. The more interesting thing is that right now there's this glass between you and the information. You know, I can't reach inside of my phone and the things can't come out of my phone. So they are not actually connected. There's still a barrier. It's already pretty good because you can take this with you wherever you are, and it's already kind of very connective because you can, for example, take a picture and then maybe edit it a little bit and then shoot it up into the internet, and everybody in your like surrounding and friend circle and everybody can see it. But that's kind of it, right? And then we have a little bit more like when you think about Facebook, for example, you can click this button and then it turns the photo into 3D. And then you can go with your phone like this and you're like, oh, it's moving a little bit, right? So you can connect a little bit more to the photo because you have a kind of a simulated depth impression, right? That comes through moving the device and the image moves the same. So that you have this, what is that effect called? I can't remember right now. It has a specific name. When the foreground and the background move in different rates, and so you have kind of a depth impression from that, right? You can kind of imagine distance, right? So that is pretty interesting. But it's you can't go into the picture, and the picture can't come out towards you. So that's kind of limiting. This is what we have right now. Basically, the problem is the picture is still 2D, which sounds strange because photography is 2D in nature, but it's only 2D because we make it 2D. Because when you think about the beginnings of photography, we already had 3D photography, which was called stereoscopic photography, where you simply have two lenses, and then you had this device where you have a divider here in the middle, and you just look at the picture like this, and you see two different pictures for two different eyes, and then you see it in 3D. Now, why is that why is this useful? Because this is how we measure distance, basically. The reason why you know that something in front of you is like, I don't know, 30 centimeters or 35 centimeters or 32 centimeters away from you is because you have these two pictures and your brain is comparing them. So this makes everything very real. Now, of course, you don't have a number that you see with your eyes, but you have a very, very precise measurement. It's automatically happening because when you grab your cup, you can very precisely know when the cup is starting and when the air is ending before you even touch the cup. You can't do this with just one eye. Of course, everybody knows that. But this is we often don't think about it as measuring distance with our brain, basically. But this is what happens, right? So, hi, Sandra. How are you doing? Thanks for joining. So, of course, if you want to have an image that can come outwards towards you, or you can go into the image, that is a pretty important part of that, right? That you have this depth impression inside of the image, right? So that's already pretty interesting. And you can do this basically, I would say you can do this one of two ways. Is that how you say that? One of two ways? You can actually have two lenses and they create a stereoscopic image, or, and this is already happening right now, is that I don't think my phone has that, but a lot of modern phones like the iPhone, the new iPhone have that, stuff like that, is that you have sensors touching the surface. It's called, I think it's called LiDAR. I'm not 100% sure if what is inside of the iPhone is also LiDAR, but it measures the distance and builds an accurate depth map of the surrounding. So you can simply basically texture the image onto that depth map, and afterwards you can move it a little bit and you basically also have depth in there. So that's pretty useful. Muriel says, how far is VR from common use? How far is VR from common use? I mean, we have VR right now. Of course, common is like everyday use, right? That's a good question. I personally, I think that VR is not as useful as AR is. AR is augmented reality, which means that things are overlaid over the reality you're already seeing. So the reality becomes augmented. This is where these two things connect. The Internet of Things and the metaverse, it connects when the real world becomes animated, right? Animated means, of course, as we know, that things start moving, that they become like independent from us and have our own activity, right? Like, for example, the word animated and animal, they have the same root. They come from the same background because the animal also is moving around, right? But on its own, like, volition, on its own ideas, right? So this is, in a certain way, is a pretty important part for us because also this is another element. Sorry, it's getting very abstract right now. Let me know if you kind of lose the string of thought and I have to repeat something. Right now, our surrounding is not very animated, right? Things are just there. Like, for example, look at this cup here. It's very nice, right? It looks pretty nice, really pretty cool, but it's not animated. It's static, right? The shape is static. The print is static. There's nothing happening, right? So this is not animated, but it could be animated. Why would it be animated? Because it's not interacting with me. So this is a form of culture that is created at a certain point by an artist, and that's the end of the story. The shape has been designed, the print has been designed, and then it can't change anymore. Not so great, right? Now, where do we know this from? This kind of print situation. It's a printed form, and it's a printed design, basically. Well, if you think about text that we have in the past, do we have text here? No, never mind. If you think about text, we had that in the past, right? We had text that was written out on paper and then you couldn't change it anymore. You had to write everything again, or you could like maybe change 1 or 2 letters with the Tipp-Ex, with the white paint over it, and then write that 1 letter again. But if you want to move half of the text down and write something in the middle, you have to write just everything again, right? And also with photography, you had the same thing. You had like you would like you make it on a metal plate, and then you couldn't change it afterwards, right? But now we can change it, right? So things become more animated over time. But right now we have a picture, and the picture doesn't change afterwards. You can't interact with the image. Sorry, I'm getting very far away from the VR topic. Let's go back to that. So when you have augmented reality, all of that can be overlaid over what we experience every day. Of course, VR is where you are completely surrounded by that. So the reality is replaced by that. Virtual reality. This is the difference of these two things. But the downside of that is you're kind of captured inside of that. So this kind of removes, in a certain degree, the ability to interact with other people and to also see the surroundings, stuff like that, which it kind of moves away the social dimension of that. With augmented reality, it can be social because you're still seeing everybody around you, but with VR it is less social in a sense because you can't see the people around you. You can of course simulate them, like in these kind of cringy Zuckerberg videos where you have certainly these like 3D avatars that look a lot like Nintendo World, stuff like that. And then you can be social again in a certain different way, which I think for most people isn't as real, doesn't feel as good, because we have it right now. We have online games right now. We have the exact same situation. Of course, not with a headset, but it's social, but it's kind of not the same thing. You know, you're still in a certain way lonely, even though you're surrounded by 100 people in a room. You're feeling like, for some reason, we need that kind of being there with other people, this kind of dimension, right? Which they are also working on. Oh God, what is that called? Google has a project. Is it called Google Spark or something like that? Where they have a screen that feels extremely realistic 3D. Is that called Google Spark? No, it's called something else. I don't know what. Let me check that real quick. You should absolutely look that up. Google 3D video call. Let's see. There we go. It's called Project Starline. You need to check that out. It's pretty amazing. Really cool. I hope they develop that further, because with Google you never know if they progress with that or not. Sorry, Arno also asked something. I was like stuck in that one answer. Arna says you can scan an object and create a 3D model. That's also a very good example of that, right? I think there are already AR glasses. Yes, there are already AR glasses. You can even use your phone for AR. It's there right now. For example, that I don't know if I can link that in a certain way. I made this kind of 3D scan, and you have seen me put myself, the 3D scan of myself, into a concert, onto the airport tarmac, stuff like that. So this is where I can place this like 3D scan of myself into the real world. That's already AR. It's not animated. The figure is not moving, but it is AR in the sense that I have a virtual object that I place into the real world as if it's there. Of course, I still have to look through this, but we already have devices where this is like hold like this in front of our eyes with 2 lenses, so we can still see it sharp, and then you still use the camera to just show you the world behind that. So it's kind of integrated and overlaid. And of course, then afterwards we have these glasses which kind of projected onto the glasses. So when you think about when we go back to photography and how that connects, is that a lot of that is where photography becomes more a space that you can interact with afterwards, right? So it becomes 3-dimensional. You can look a little bit left or right, or it becomes completely 3D, where you can simply walk around in that space, which is also very interesting, right? Or maybe it becomes animated. We also have seen that is a little bit with artificial intelligence. That's the next thing that's coming there. So these three things actually work perfectly with each other. That you have the artificial intelligence that afterwards then animates the face of the person, stuff like that, for example, right? Where you have an old photo, you can do that right now, and then the eyes are looking around a little bit, and the person's smiling a little bit, like you know, even if it's just like an old photo. So that's also an interesting element of that. And we need all three of them basically, so you can create these things. Because if you have a, like for example, if you have a photo where you want to walk around in, you need basically artificial intelligence to a certain degree to stick all these images and all the data together to create a 3D room for that is also believable and is also created in real time, which with the current technology that we have developed, we can't really do that, but AI develops things that can do that in a very fast way. So that's pretty interesting that is possible, right? Photogrammetry is easily accessible right now. Yes, it is. It is accessible. It is accessible in the way that VR is accessible. It's you can use it. It's no problem. There's even apps on your phone, but it's not common in the sense that it's integrated right into your photo app on the smartphone doesn't have that, where you just go like this. Right now we have things like panorama and things like that we can do, and long time exposure, and like more classic things that the camera can do for us. And you also have like 360 cameras that are a little bit less common, but you can just buy them and you click on the button and it makes a 360 photo for you. So that's very, very easy. And then for a photogrammetry, you have to actually like search for it actively to actually do that, right? And then also know what to do with the data afterwards. That's also a little bit of a problem. Like, how do you play that data? Where is it saved? How can you show it to your friends afterwards, right? So there's several hurdles you have to overcome to actually use that right now. Let me go back here to, was there something I wanted to show? Oh yeah, just my stream here. Okay, good. So a lot of that is these kind of different dimensions that are coming to what photography is, which I find very interesting, because I would say photography hasn't changed in a very, very long time, right? I mean, it has changed aesthetically a lot, and that change is based on social media, of course, on how we share images, and it has changed in the way that we can edit the photos afterwards through the software. So also again, this may this is the other dimension. Let me write that down real quick before I forget it. Software. 1 second. Software. Human. There we go. Okay, cool. So I will talk about that next. Yeah, now I forgot what I was saying. What did I say right now? Sorry. Oh yeah, photography. The software has changed on what we can do with photography, of course, and the aesthetic has changed on how I present photography. But it is still a photo. It is still the same like 2D thing that we replace, of course, the paper print with a screen. So we replace the film with the analog, and then we replace the paper with screen. And then basically you could also say we compressed both of them into one device, which is this. This is now, which is pretty amazing. This is at the same time the camera and the photo album, which is pretty insane if you think about it. This is the device where you make the photo and where you consume the photo afterwards. So it's pretty ingenious, right? This has replaced everything else that we have, like most of the things we've used before, right? A notepad and all these other. I mean, the list is endless. Anyways, so what were we talking about? Yeah, but it's still a 2D photo. It's still not interactive. There's nothing you can do afterwards with it. You just look at it and that's it, right? There's the next dimension. Okay, let me write that down too. There we go. Okay. So this is, oh, there we come, the next dimension. Wait, I have to write this in brackets here. There we go. Okay, so now the train is in full full speed. There we go. Should we delve into that, or should we like talk about the software first? Maybe the software is more interesting to you, I guess, than going into the next abstract dimension here. So one thing you have seen when you look at software like Luminar, but also when you look at software like, for example, Lightroom or such, also maybe Photolab also has that to a certain degree, is that software becomes, in the way that we use it, more human. And what I mean by that is that the software is developed in a way that it gives us results as we expect them intuitively as people when we want to change something, right? So one example would be, for example, selection. This is an example for Lightroom, for example, where you can say select the person or select the object or select the sky. And the software will know what that is and then select the sky everywhere where sky is. Or it will select the person almost perfectly all the time where the person is, which is really interesting. So this means that the software has not just an understanding of the content, but also the meaning of the content. That's a difference. If you have something that's content aware, it kind of understands like there's different structures in there, but it doesn't necessarily know what these structures specifically are. But now we see the starting where the software actually knows what is going on, and it can say, oh, that's a person, so I will select that. And this is the sky, so we'll select that. And this is the background, so I will select that. And then we'll make 3 different masks. And you can use these different masks differently, right? So this is one example. Now here's a second example on how to change that. Also, when software becomes more human, is that when you adjust shadows. Now, when you have a lot of software today, including Affinity Photo, when you adjust shadows basically means everything that's dark, which is not a shadow, you know? If you think about a shadow as a human, from the human perspective, you know to differentiate in your mind a shadow from something that is dark and from something that is absent of light. These are different things. Not everything that is absent of light is automatically a shadow, right? So, for example, if you look... if you're photographing a house and there is a door that is going to the cellar and the cellar is pitch black, you wouldn't necessarily say that this is the shadow and this is what you want to adjust. It's just dark. It's a dark room. It's not shadow. Of course, it's shadow in a certain degree of absence of light, but you wouldn't define that as shadow. You would rather have, like, for example, the dog is standing there and the dog is making a shadow on the ground. So that's the shadow that you want to adjust, right? Another example is you're wearing like a dark shirt, a black shirt. The shirt is dark, but it's not shadow. You're not wearing shadow. You're just wearing a dark shirt. So the software should ideally be should be able to differentiate between the dark shirt and the shadow next to the dark shirt that may have the same value, but this is the actual shadow you want to work on. So this is one of these dimensions, right? Where this is changing, where you have the shadow slider and it's actually reacting just to the things that are shadow, which is pretty important. It's also ingenious that software understands the content of the image, right? Now here's another example of that, on how that is changing. You see that mainly in Luminar, is that you have sliders and they set different moods. So let me open this up real quick because I actually personally can't remember right now what they are called. 1 second. Like drama, I think one is called drama and the other one is called mystic or something like that. I can't remember. 1 second. I'm starting the software right now. But those are really interesting changes. There we go. Let's go here to the edit tab. And it says, for example, yeah, it says, oh, there's mood, amount, long beach, no, dramatic, toning, matte, mystical. Yeah. So you have, for example, you have one adjustment that says dramatic and the other one says mystical. Things like that. I think you also have other things in here that are like that. So yeah, and then you have others. Maybe I should show you the screen real quick. 1 second. Let me switch this over real quick. We have to hide this here. I only have one screen up. Oh, I think I can't because I didn't change the screen resolution. So let me just tell you about that. Sorry, I thought I'm just talking, or maybe I can. Let me have a look here. No, you're seeing just this, so I have to readjust this real quick. 1 second. There we go. Good thing I'm kind of a professional some of the time, not all of the time. There we go. Can you see this over here? Maybe I have to make this bigger so you can actually see this. And now you also see my OBS screen. Sorry for that. There we go. There we go. This is already a little bit better. So you can see here, where are we? Where are we? There we go. Whoops. Can you see that still? Yes, I think you can. Okay, cool. So here we have a slider. It says dramatic, for example. What does it mean, dramatic? You know, you don't know, but you have like a feeling of what dramatic means. So when you adjust this, of course, it shows you the result. And it might be more dramatic or not, but this is something where it doesn't tell you what it is specifically doing from all the technical parts. It only tells you, well, you can add more drama if you want to. But on one hand, you would say, well, yeah, but then I don't know what is happening in the background. But on the other hand, what the good thing is, you don't have to know what is happening in the background. The software is doing it for you. You only have to know what kind of goal you want to reach, right? And it might sound like it's kind of dumbing things down, but actually is it? If you think about it, like we have so many things today that support us in the way that they are working. Let me remember. For example, you have a coffee machine and you just press the button. You want to have a cappuccino or an espresso or a latte, and it's doing it for you. You don't have to think about how that process is actually working, what is included in all these kind of steps. Or let me think about something else. Like, for example, modern cars, they do a lot for you, right? Like they help you when you like want to drive from stand, or when you brake, or when you want to park. They have all these kind of helping things that are really, really like supporting you in all the actions you're doing, right? Let me show you other things. So for example, down here we have these elements like, for example, you have portrait bokeh, which means that the image, the software knows where the person is and what the background is, and then can create bokeh from that. It can realize where the face is and do some face adjustments here, like make the face lighter, make the face slimmer, stuff like that. You can adjust the eyes, the mouth. I can't do it right now because there's no person in here. Then you have skin adjustment, you have body adjustment, like the shape, the abdomen, you can adjust that too. The high key, things like that for you. This is on the portrait here, still high key for the portrait, not a general, right? So yeah, that's pretty interesting kind of changes that make software more human. Let me come back to the other screen so I can actually look at the chat again. There we go. Yeah, I still use the chat. Write something in the chat. I'm more a talking person. I'm not like a interactive person. I'm sorry. I should ask you a question. That would be so much better. But long story short, it means that the software is coming towards us. Now, like I said, there is this argument of saying, no, it's just like for stupid people because they don't know what the things are and how they work. But it's actually not the case, because we already, like, even if you look at Affinity Photo, we have a lot of these things where we support it by the software, because doing it like in the actual steps would be too complex to do that. Like, for example, if you think about sharpening an image, in the day, like back in the day when I started to learn how to edit photos, we had a completely different process because there was no sharpening filter. You had to like do this kind of frequency separation like this. You had this kind of high frequency filter layer that you create, and then from that, with the blend mode, you would create the sharpening, was a multiple step thing where you use multiple layers to create that kind of sharpening. Right now, you just click sharpening, and then you have the slider, and then you have different kind of sharpenings inside of Affinity Photo also, right? Where it says like Gaussian and box blur and lens blur and stuff like that, where the filter is already created for you with a certain purpose, with a certain result in mind, so you don't need to know all of the steps on how to create that yourself, right? So we already have that. That's a pretty important part, and it's going more and more into that direction. Why is that? Of course, that's a good question. Why is this happening? Because things become more complex. Now, when every stage, when things become more complex, of course, we can't handle the amount of complexity coming towards us. So that means at a certain point, we have to leave certain things behind us and have them automated for us. This is a very important very important step in a technical evolution, so to speak, because at a certain point also it doesn't make sense to do all these things by hand if the software can do it better for you and you want to decide on other things, right? There's what would be a good example for that? Maybe that's a good question. Like, write some examples for that into the chat. That would be great. Maybe that's a good I have to become more interactive, to be honest. What would be a good example for that? Automation of processes that are automatic right now, and in the past they haven't been like that. Write something from your own life. That would be a good thing for the live chat, right? For example, unlocking the phone with your face. I don't think that makes too much sense. What would be a thing? Oh yeah, I have like for example, when you think about a microwave, or when you think about a microwave, you just have a program, and you don't need to know what kind of setting you need to cook this kind of thing. You just say, okay, these are fries. I don't have a microwave. I don't know if you make fries in a microwave, but you click on, let's say, chicken or fish. So you click on the chicken or fish button, and then you put it in, and afterwards it comes out perfectly, because the machine knows what kind of temperature and how long it should be for chicken. You don't know. You don't have to know, because why do you need to know these kind of things if they're the same thing every single time, right? These kind of things is what I mean. I can't come up with another example. I'm sorry. But there are so many, and yeah, I'm not great with examples. Oh, there's something coming up here. Sandra says the artist does not need to know the math, but to know how to use a particular effect using, say, glow. The artist needs to learn to understand the impact of changing any slider. Yeah, but I mean, you see with your eyes what the change is, you know? So you have to think about it that way. When you have a lot of complexity is always limiting people in the way they can do things. And this is not just for beginners and like amateurs, it's also for professionals. So when you think about, like, for example, in the past, when you think about the movies, they only could do a certain amount of special effects. They only could do a certain amount of like visual effects on the screen, because it wasn't possible. That's one way, but that's not the only way. It was also too work intensive. It was too hard to do these things. It just took too much time to go through all of the steps to do them by hand. And you could, of course, say, yes, but you like the effects from back then better. And I also like some of the effects from back then a lot better. But now they are a lot more easy to do. And for artists, even the professional artists, even people who have done this all of their lives, it means they simply can do more with that, right? So there's a lot of processes where they don't have to think about, how does it work? I don't know anymore, because the machine is doing it for you, or the process has completely been replaced by something else, right? So for example, an example for that would be, rather than you building a model in real life of a spaceship in small, and then you have to move the camera, and then afterwards you have to like move the I think a second camera that moves over the actors in the same way. This has completely been replaced. You have only one real camera that is moving over the actors. This camera is being tracked, and then the rest is done in 3D. So the second camera is virtual and the model is virtual. So you don't need to know how to control the second camera, and you don't need to know how to build a model and how to light the model afterwards, because all of that is done in 3D now, virtually, right? Of course, this is a different set of knowledge you need to know, but it is so much easier to do that. It's so much faster and more costs. How do I say, saving so much money that he can do a lot more of that. So this is why right now we have movies where everything is basically replaced, and the only real thing in the scene sometimes is the actor. Before, that was like really, really hard to just build everything around the actor, and like as a complete world, right? Of course, we still had situations where we just like had a stage, like we had that for thousands of years, right? Not thousands of years, but a theater stage is like built around the actor. That I don't mean that. I mean like a complete city, for example, right? Stuff like that. So. There's a very big purpose for not needing to know what is happening, but only caring about the result at a certain point, right? But I know what you mean, that you need to have an artistic understanding on how to we have the process right in front of us, and I completely didn't see it. Like, of course, the change that we have from analog to digital, this is exactly that. You don't need to know right now what kind of film to choose, how to develop the film, how to develop that film onto paper, and how to do in the darkroom these kind of different projections onto the paper, so you get different like merges of images to create different kind of effects. You don't need to know any of that anymore, because all of that has become digital right now. So there's no development of of course you could say there's still a development in sense of raw development. So in a certain sense, it's still there. And then you have Affinity Photo, where you do all of these processes, but they are a lot easier, and you don't need to know how they worked in the past, right? So that's a good transition from that, right? So that's very, very interesting to have that. Right. Okay. So yeah, I think these developments are very, very interesting on what is happening with photography and how it's changing in the next years. And you see it basically everywhere happening, right? Every kind of company is really pushing towards that, to make it simpler, to make it more humane, to be supported by artificial intelligence, because the processes, the things we want to do with photos have become so complex, but also they have to be done so fast. We don't really have we don't have the time to do it all of that in the classic way by hand, but also we shouldn't do that, because it hinders us to do the more interesting things we could do right now. I should open up Luminar again. 1 second. Sorry. I have to go back to that. So it is very interesting also from the way of where is software going. Is there a before and after? Yeah, here it is. Oh, there we go. So let me show you that real quick. I have to readjust now, of course, the screen. 1 second. No, this is not it. I don't know what I'm moving here right now. Oh God, I should have made a copy of the scene. Can I undo this real quick? Yeah, I think that's it. That did that. Okay, 1 second. So when you look at this photo here, I'm already almost there. 1 second. Give me a moment here. There we go. This wouldn't be necessary if I had a second screen on right now. Okay, so when you look at this scene, it's fake. It's mostly fake. So when we look at the original, is this the original? Yes, this is the original photo. This is what's actually there. Not even the helicopter up here is actually there, and the sun also is not here. It's not part of the photo. This is a foggy day photo. So this is a very big part of the process of where things are going. Of course, you don't like, a lot of people say, nah, that's too fake. This is not the only application, of course. So this is a very extreme application where you change reality from a very rainy day into a really beautiful sunset. And you can see that a lot of the things are done. For example, in Luminar, it's adjusting the sun rays here depending on where the mountains are flowing. So when there shouldn't be a sun ray, the sun ray is simply hidden. So this is kind of simulated realistically. Also upwards, you see we don't have these kind of sun rays because there it's kind of too bright up here. And then also when you look at the reflection of the sky with these clouds and things here, this is also reflected down here also with the colors, so that all of that looks pretty realistic, right? So this is a very extreme application of that, of course. Not everything is like that. But what we have right now is a situation where you take a photo and you just want to make the photo look nicer. So for example, you want to soften the skin. You want to have a nice light in the room, so you see all the details. You want to have it sharper. You want to have maybe more detail in the hair and in the clothing, but less detail in the face to cover up some wrinkles and stuff like that. You want to maybe have the eyes a little bit brighter, a little bit more colorful, maybe have the teeth a little bit whiter, stuff like that. Small adjustments, but they have a huge impact on how the image looks afterwards. And they are like, they can be close to the reality, but at the same time, the process is in a big way also either animated, or the sliders are made for you, where the slider simply says whitening teeth, or make the eyes brighter, or make the skin softer, like you have here on the side. Can you still see that? Yes, I think here you have a skin slider here, and then you can simply adjust the amount of that. You have even a slider here for shine removal, which I have made a tutorial about that, how to remove the shine from skin, and now it's just a slider, right? So this is where things are changing. It's really, really interesting to be able to do that. And again, for example, with the smartphone, I think I hope the other cameras, the mirrorless cameras, they're kind of catching up to that in a certain degree. But with the smartphone, when I photograph something, on the screen, it tells me what it is. It says, oh, you're photographing a cat right now. Okay, we might get like more, we make the cat look better, right? Or, oh, that's food. Okay, let's make the settings for food, right? It's not just the settings on how you like expose and stuff like that. It's how the photo is processed afterwards. And that's really interesting because for the everyday user, it's very difficult to understand how would you process the photo of food differently from a cat photo, from a landscape, from a portrait. What are the different steps you would take from that? What is the workflow? But also, on a professional level, do you really need to know at that moment? Because what you want to have is a quick, very good result as a photographer that you can post right now, and then you adjust your own style with the settings you need to do. And this also, I found it very amazing. When I was at VidCon, you see all these other YouTubers, these other content creators. And personally, I have to admit, I thought they come with really good cameras, filming there with a light setup, with everything, and then just edit it afterwards to look amazing, because you have all these kind of very high quality videos on the internet, especially on TikTok, where the production cycle is extremely fast. It has to be on there in seconds, not in days, not in hours, in seconds. It has to be like you film it, it already has to be online, and it has to look very, very professional at the same time. So I was really amazed. They're just using their phones. They're not having like $10,000 cameras from Blackmagic or whatever and saying, yeah, this is kind of or kind of Sony cameras where they film in 5K and then do some amazing stuff with that. They have their smartphone, and the smartphone already, first of all, the smartphone can film in 4K, and then you don't need 4K most of the time because you're looking at it on your phone. Now, of course, this is changing also. This is another change that's coming, by the way. People are moving back from their smartphone to the big screen. And big screen, I don't mean the cinema, I mean the television, right? Your 50-inch screen or 40-inch screen, whatever you have at home. And this, again, has a huge impact on how you consume the images or the videos that you're looking at, right? So, by the way, someone has written a comment. I should look at that. 1 second. Let's go into that. Real pictures are not real in the first place because it's 1 second in time. Yes, that's absolutely true also. There is no, like, a photo isn't the reality. It's what the machine creates for you. It always has been. A photo was always different from what you see with your eyes because you make also the adjustments in your camera and you capture it over time, stuff like that. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the big screen. So this is another very interesting change. Sorry. If you think about consuming information on the big screen, first of all, when you're looking at your TV, you're usually sitting comfortably in your, I don't know, lazy boy chair or your sofa, your couch. You're relaxed. You have a lot of time. You sit there, you want to chill. So that means you have a lot of time to look at a long video. And this is why a lot of videos you see right now, also from bigger channels, becoming a lot longer. So suddenly, before it was like short, made it like 15 seconds and it has to be the full video, TikTok. Now, you have a lot of videos that are like half an hour long. And you would say, half an hour? I'm not going to watch half an hour on YouTube. Well, it's not made for YouTube. It's made for using YouTube on your television like Netflix. And Netflix is something where you want to have a long video, because if you go on Netflix and you have an episode, it's just like 5 minutes long. You're like, what is that? I want to have like, at least give me half an hour, maybe 25 minutes, but not shorter than that, right? So this is the difference. On your phone, it has to be quick. Why? Because you move. It's called a mobile for a reason, right? You move around. So you go into the subway, you get out of the subway, you only have 5 minutes between the stops. This is how long the video can be. But if you're in home, in front of your big screen, you have all of the time in the world because this is after work and you're just chilling there, right? So it can be and it should be a long format. Now, again, if we think about photography, we should probably, because that's what we are here for. There we go. When you have a small screen in your hands, what do you need? You need big things because the screen is small. If the screen is small and the details are small, you can't see anything. So this is why often you don't see huge landscapes, wide angle with super small details, because if you would photograph it like that, you have an elephant and the elephant is like this. It is like an ant. You can't really see it. So this is why if you have mobile photography, a lot of what you see is either big structures that have a very nice, how do you say, perspective flow from the lines. And this makes the big structures into into one shape. It fuses everything into one flow together that looks amazing on that screen. Or things are very close to the camera. Like people are very close to the camera. And this, by the way, this was very interesting in lecture where a dancer was talking about why and how TikTok is changing dance. Now, why would TikTok change dance? Not just because they are kind of goofy, but also because you're looking at the screen like this. What does it mean? If you have the screen like this and you're close to the screen so you can actually see the person and the dance moves, there isn't much wiggle room. They can't go left or right. They can maybe go a little bit closer, but usually they are staying in place. So they are usually only moving their upper body, but not so much their legs, and they certainly not moving around on the like left and right and whatever, because they have to stay inside of that very small frame, right? Now, if you think about a television and it's like this, first of all, and it's like filling a lot of your vision field, this means you can have very small details in there. Not very small, but you can have small details in there and you still see them. So what does it mean for photography? If you make photography for the small screen on a smartphone, things have to be either visually impressing with the perspective lines, or they have to be close to the camera to have a cool effect. This is also, it's very interesting if you think about it. Right now we have a big trend where you have all these photos where things are held very close to the lens and then they go perspectively towards the model, which is in the background, and there's a visual connection through these elements. And everything happens very large on your screen and very visually easy to understand because it is built to be looked at on a small screen. This is the main purpose of that photography. This is why photography has evolved. These photo techniques have evolved in that way to work on that small device. Now, if you have a big screen, a lot of that probably looks kind of goofy. First of all, it's in the wrong dimension because it's photographed like this, but your television is like this. So it only fills like maybe a third of the screen at best, you know? But also, if it would fill all of the screen, it would just look very goofy to have these kind of things that suck you into the screen because the screen is just too big. So you would afterwards create different things that use this huge space. And now, when you think about that, when you come back to the big screen, and let's also think about the big screen at this for a moment as the cinema. What do we have in cinema? We have, first of all, we have ultra wide screen, which is even wider than what we have on a TV. But what they often do is landscapes, scenery. You have a person here, and then you have the room left and right of the person that is just there and is giving you information, is telling a story through the room, through the landscape, through the different lines, through the colors in that space, through the dimensions and how the person is put into the dimensions. Very different. The person is often not filling the complete screen, right? As a matter of fact, when you watch a movie, what you can do is like go like this, and like encapsule the middle of your screen and just look at it like this. And you will realize that the people will almost always stay in the middle of that little rectangle. They will not move to the edges of the screen. Why? Of course, why is that? Because when they would move to the edges of the screen, you would be like in a tennis match. If there is a discussion on screen, you would be like, what? Okay, yeah. And then, okay, no, that's not useful. You don't want to do that. It's exhausting. It's not fun. So you have a big screen and there's a lot of scenery happening that is creating the story for you, but the actors usually are here because you can always look in the same direction. You have to move your eyes maybe a tiny bit like a tiny bit left and right, but they are always staying in that middle point. Unless there is some reason why they're on the edge of the screen for dramatic purposes, right? Or for action purposes. They are moving into the screen or they're moving out of the screen, so that makes sense that they are like interacting with the edges, but usually they don't. So when you think about photography, you can think about it in the same way. So when I photograph for a bigger screen, for a television screen, like I said, 40, 50 inch, pretty big, and also horizontal, right? How does photography change in that way? If people come back to that big screen to look at the photography, right? It has to be in a different way, right? And you can also have people that are smaller, because even if they are smaller, they are still pretty big on your screen, right? So that's pretty interesting to have these kind of things, right? And now we have the next step. We didn't even talk about that yet. This is still 2D. It's still a device that's standing in front of you. It's not a device that's strapped to your head, because this is the next thing where the screen is like this and you can just look around and you see the whole scenery around you. How is photography changing then, right? If it's not just filling part of your vision, it's filling all of your vision, right? So you can do even more with that. And you can maybe even move around inside of that photo because it has become three-dimensional at that point. That's pretty amazing, right? Sandra says, but the size of the screen can impact the feel of the screen. Example, Lawrence for Arabia, watch it full screen and then watch it in a version trimmed for TV. The impact is different. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of impact on the ratio of the screen, also how big the screen is. So, of course, if you have like, this is why movies sometimes are also recut for the classic television where you have 4:3, things like that. And of course, in the cinema, you have these ultra wide screens where they can work a lot more with the dimensions in there, and you have different story told by that. So it's really interesting to see these different versions of the same movie, and they have a different impact on you. But also with photography, right? So that is very interesting, these kind of things that are happening. All right. Okay. Um. Oh, I still have this other dimension. Should we talk about that, or should we like take a breath? Let's take a breath for a moment. Here, have a coffee. Are you still like listening, or is it all too much? The waterfall of my talking information here. Mm. Ah, there we go. Ah. By the way, um, let's have a little interjection here of another topic, so it's not our minds are not exploding. I found when I look at most of innovation, usually when people search for innovation, they ask themselves, how could things be differently? And they, for example, they come up with ideas like, we have a car and a car has wheels. What if a car didn't have wheels? So we have a hovering car or we have a flying car. So they doing the exact same thing, but for some reason they change an element that doesn't really make sense. I mean, if a car has wheels or it hovers, it's the same thing, right? It doesn't really improve anything. So it's kind of this innovation that's kind of, it tries to keep the things you already have, but just make them more sci-fi, more fancy. And usually that's not really working. But the actual thing where innovation is happening, that's really interesting, is you shouldn't ask how should things be differently. You should instead ask where should things be differently. So where are they happening differently in the future, right? Because then you have a much better understanding what needs to be changed. Because when you change the place on where something is happening, you need to change the way the thing is happening because it's happening in a different place, right? So again, if we think back at the difference between the TV screen and the smartphone, a TV screen is at home and it's stationary and you're stationary. So that defines how that film or how that photo is looked at. But if you're moving and you have a small screen, this is a different situation. You're at a different place, right? You are in, for example, the subway. There's noisy stuff like that. So how does the medium have to be differently? And maybe you're looking also at a lot of, because the information there is also flowing faster because it has to be shorter. We also have that with photos. Like, for example, if you think about Instagram, there's a lot of stream of information coming at you. So how does the photo have to be photographed and edited to work on the small screen and work in a short amount of time? In that short amount of time, you have to be attracted to the photo. You have to be engaged by the photo. You have to understand the content of the story, and you have to even like see that there is a story, and you have to feel an emotion. All of that has to happen in a couple of seconds before you go on to the next picture. It's a very different process than when you, for example, go to a gallery and you're slowly looking at a picture, and maybe you read a text or someone talks to you about the picture, and you're starting to understand. You spend time with the photo, and you have a deeper involvement with that photography, which also maybe is a big like photo in front of you, right? Very, very different process. Sorry. Sandra says, so what's the difference between Luminar and Photolab? They both develop pictures but approach the process differently. Adan has some symbols here. I don't know why. What is that? Stop. I don't know what that means. Stop YouTube? I don't know what you mean by that. Anyways, what's the difference between Luminar and Photolab? A very good indicator when you look at a software and if the software is right for you is to actually go on the website and look at the marketing that they're doing. So what I mean by that is, look what kind of photos they are showing to you when they imagine how their software is used. Because the software is, the software is built around creating these results. So with Luminar, what you usually create is you have these flashy, popping, intense pictures. So I would say if you do social media and you want to have popping results where people go like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Luminar is good for that because it's eye-catching. It's making for that kind of flashy wow effect. This is where Luminar is really good at. On the other hand, if you have Photolab, if you look at the website, you often see nature pictures. You see things that are more like National Geographic, like a lot more natural, a lot less pop and loud and impressive in the first second. It's more in a classic way. It's more in a way where you want to have people relate to things that are basically actually happening in front of the camera, so to speak, which is also why, at least at this moment, I think in Photolab you don't have a sky replacement, or you don't have like a software that changes the shape of your face or stuff like that, because that's not the idea. The idea of Photolab is to make the picture look impressive but natural at the same time. Like a natural geographic photo, for example. It looks really amazing. You tell a story of something that happens in the real world, and you just want to make it look like really cool or really nice. So that's I would say that's the big difference. And this is also why Photolab at the moment doesn't have sliders like drama or mystic or stuff like that. But at the other hand, you would say, yeah, okay, you see, it's just for people who don't know about art, who need these sliders like drama or mystic. No, that's not true. Because if you look into Photolab, you have other sliders. Like you have, for example, Smart Light, and you have Clear View, stuff like that, that they help you to create a better picture by the software in a certain sense, not completely, not from the actual meaning of the content, but from the structure of the photo, can look at the photo, and then you have this Smart Light slider, and it creates a beautiful lighting of the scenery in your photo without you having to understand what is actually going on. You just say, I want to have nicer light, and this is that slider. And Clear View is, in a certain way, it is fog removal, but it's more than that. It gives structure, it gives clarity, it gives texture to the image, stuff like that. So with that slider, you can create, with just one slider, really, really beautiful, intense effects. By the way, I think the Clear View is part of the Elite version. I wish they wouldn't have that, but they do. So there's certain things that make it really useful for the Elite version. This is the Clear View is probably one of the most impressive about that. Clearview is often very good for things like, how can I say, water, for example, or landscapes, also architecture. So this is also what the software is built around. When you photograph these kind of sceneries, I would say, mostly sceneries. And for example, Capture One is more of a studio software where most of the time, I would say in a studio, you photograph people. And when you look at this, when you look at the website, I think you also see that. I might be wrong. Let me check that real quick. But I think most of the photos they show you are portraits. Capture One. Let me see. What does their marketing look like? Is it landscapes too? There is a guy on his phone. That's interesting. Kind of surprising. Let's go here to products. Oh, yeah. Oh, right. You see? You don't see because you don't see my screen. When you come to the site, this is what you see. They are showing you studio. See? Camera, the guy. There is a computer. They are editing the shot while they are shooting. This is what you see. This is their marketing for Capture One. So this means this is what the software is built for. It's used to shoot and edit at the same time. This is also why you have an overlay function in that software, where you can overlay different other things onto the picture or different other photos you have done before, so you know that they are going to work together afterwards. Pretty interesting, right? Of course, you have a little bit of product photography too, but you can see that this is mainly done for the studio and with all the studio setup, stuff like that. Let's go to the Luminar page here. Luminar, there we go, Luminar. Skylum, yes, let's click on that here. And there you can see that you have, well, I have a lot of, this is Neo. One second, let's go here to Luminar AI. There we go. Accept, no, what is this? Oh yeah, this is the cookie stuff. So annoying. You see, they, of course, they promote all of these kind of AI things here. And you see here when you mouse over that, the image is starting to pop. You see, normal image, and then boom, it's getting loud, it's getting intense, it's getting like, yeah, you see? So this is what that is built for. You have a simple, like everyday looking photo, and you want to look it amazing. You want to look it, make it look really, really cool afterwards. You see, from this to this, with very simple ways, without understanding the process completely. You want to go from a normal photo to an amazing photo. And also they advertise with these kind of photos. You see how this is different from Capture One. This is the kind of photography that works really well on Instagram, that works really well on social media. So that is what this is built around. Again, if we go back to Capture One, this is more like things you would see in advertisement or in a print catalog or stuff like that, or in art photography, things like that. So it's a different kind of photography, a different kind of output that you get from that. Let's go here to Photolab real quick. Photolab, no, Photolab. There we go. 9, sorry, no, there we go, DxO Photolab. So here, I don't want to trail right now, I just want to look at the things. Here you see you have more these kind of natural things, and then you have here these sliders, and you see, well, there's not so much happening. You're even at some point puzzling what is actually the better version here. What are they actually trying to show me? So you see, in this case here, this is about lens correction. Then you have here an example for distortion, where the distortion is corrected. You see, like that. So these are more, and you see it also from the picture. What is this actually? Oh, chromatic aberration. So you have to really have a keen eye here to sometimes see the effects at all, because this is, you want to keep the image natural, but at the same time make it more impressive. And a lot of these images, as you can see here, they have this kind of, as I would call it, National Geographic style about them. This kind of photography here, documentation photography. It should stay to mostly to a high degree very natural, but more impressive. This is clear view here, for example. You see with all this spray here from the ocean, and then the spray becomes very deep and structured and alive and like a sculpture, very beautiful. So this is actually what the software really can do. It's very, very impressive, and not so easy to do that on your own. And there in the software is just one slider, which is also very impressive. So you can see how that is different, and the different kind of marketing that they have. Now, if we go to Affinity Photo, by the way, Affinity Photo, there we go. What are they marketing themselves with? And the interesting thing is, they market themselves mostly with composites. Very different. Do you actually see the screen, by the way? Yes, you do. See, I would say that's a composite. I'm not sure, maybe the person is really there, but it looks like a composite. Then they have stuff like this. This is certainly a composite. It's not a photo. There's another composite here. There we have another, like, not a composite. It's more like a product photo with some adjustment here. This is well, raw development. Okay. Yeah. So this is a normal photo. There we have another composite. So you see most of the photos. There's some stuff like this is more National Geographic style. I give you that. But lots of those are composites. And this is like digital art, digital painting. Here we have a landscape, of course, where you have the stitching. And then there's, of course, there's some other photography here too, because it can also do these kind of photography things. There's a text effect here. So a lot of that is more of the things. Here you see you can do a pattern and then put the pattern on the chocolate bar, stuff like that. But most of that is more an artistic workflow where you have a composite or you want to design something. This is what the software is built around. This is why you have all these kind of layers and adjustments and things like that you don't have in Photolab, you don't have in Luminar, you don't have in Capture One, because that is not what they are built for, right? So it's pretty interesting. And the website, the marketing usually gives you a very good impression about what is the actual use. Why should you buy that software? So this is really, really good. If you want to research what do I actually need, look at how it's marketed. And then you mostly know it's probably working for you in one way or another. Sandra says, don't tell my husband I just spent more money to get Luminar. Why? Why is that a bad thing? Luminar is a really good software. Why would that be a bad thing? Oh, there's a little bit of like moving here from the shadows for some reason. Interesting. Anyways, no, Luminar is a really good software. Like if you bought it, yeah, this is there. You didn't waste any money. Don't worry about that. It's really, really cool. And like I said, you don't have to go that extreme. You can go really simple and really like you can do very small changes in Luminar too. Not everything has to be a sky replacement and a super dramatic like Instagram looking photo. You can do very small adjustments too. But this is maybe another interesting thing to talk about when we think about the software enables you to do. By the way, how long is the stream already? Let me check here. It's 1.5 hours almost. What was I about to say? Oh, yes. The software and also the hardware, this is pretty important. The hardware too invites you to photograph. The hardware invites you to photograph in a certain way, and the software invites you, empowers you, encourages you to edit in a certain way. So you will probably feel that even if you try to stay as realistic as possible with Luminar, that the software is encouraging you to go a little bit more over the top, be a bit more dramatic, have a bit more saturation, put a bit more contrast on. Maybe let's have these details a little bit nicer, like the skin, the shape, the eyes, whatever, you know, the sky. Let's improve them a little bit because the software just is built for that, and you follow through in that kind of process, right? The same thing with the camera. I'm pretty sure that you are photographing mostly different with your smartphone than with your mirrorless, because the camera is built in a different way and is inviting you to do different things. Because, for example, of course, your smartphone is a lot more flexible. It's easier to move it around in all kinds of shapes. This is why I usually use my smartphone as a viewfinder. But also the screen is bigger, and the screen is a touch screen. It's interactive, and it also invites you to touch it. Even if you have a touch screen on your mirrorless camera, it usually doesn't really invite you to touch the picture. It's like, nah, only if you have to, please. It's not for that, you know? So that's really interesting. And as a result, we end up with different kind of photos, and we take also the photos in a different way, right? So if you go through the whole process, it's kind of good to think about when you buy all your equipment and your software, what kind of results do you actually want to have? What kind of direction do you want to go into, right? From the camera to the software to where you want to show or where you do want to where you want the result to be consumed. That's the thing that I wanted to say. And like I said before, I was very surprised that, for example, a lot of these TikTokers, they film directly with the phone. Now, it makes a lot of sense to do that because the videos are almost all of them, I would say over 99% of the videos are consumed on the phone. So when you film it with a phone, you already know directly while you film it what the result is going to exactly look like to every other person out there. So that is very important. Now, if you want to film for Netflix or for the big screen when you watch YouTube on your television, maybe you want to have a cinematic camera. Maybe then you are more like invited to use a mirrorless camera or maybe a Blackmagic camera, stuff like that. Blackmagic, they create these kind of cameras that are used for Netflix, stuff like that. And I would say, well, they are very professional too, but they have a starting point that is kind of mid-range where you get like for 2,000, about 2,000, 2,500, you already get a very, very good cinematic camera from them. So what was I about to say? Oh yeah, if you photograph for the big screen, for the TV screen, maybe you want to have a camera like that, because people, of course, on a TV screen, and of course they should, expect a cinematic experience. There's a different experience than from your smartphone. A smartphone experience is a smartphone experience. It's quick, it's popping, it's like intense, and it's also short. And on the TV, we are leaned back. We want to flow into the scenery. We want to be entertained. The story is long, and it should like involve us. And also in that situation, especially with movies, you will realize with movies you're usually the star. This is also true for photography, by the way. You can also play with that. Who's the main character? This is a big question. This has to do with the format. Think about it. When you have these social media things, these short videos, who is the star usually? You have a person who is dancing for you or doing some amazing thing for you. That is the star. You're not the star. You're the consumer in that regard. But if you watch a movie, you are the star. You're the hero of the movie, even though there's a hero in the video. But the hero in the video is just a puppet that is there so you can feel like the hero. The reason for that, when you think about that, most heroes don't have memorable lines because you should be the hero. They shouldn't be too different from you. You should be able to imagine yourself into them. This is also why most heroes have a kind of a, how can I say, they are of a certain age and of a certain background, so you can feel yourself into them a lot more. And often they don't have specific lines that stand out and are impressive. Mostly the bad guys or other characters in the film do, because, well, they are not supposed to be you, right? So it's a very different medium. And so that means in that way you would film so the person that is sitting in front of the screen is the hero. It's a different kind of storytelling, right? And with the photography is also the same thing. Like I said, to come back to that, if you photograph for the small screen, like again, the smartphone, the thing you see on the screen is the hero. You look at something and it has to be visually amazing, and you're like the consumer and just like, oh, you go like, wow, and give a like. This is the process you're expecting at that moment. If you have the big screen, you have the photo on your large TV, there's a whole scenery and you're invited to enter emotionally into that scenery so you can connect to that. So you are the star and you are meant to like fill that space with your emotion, with your expectation, with your like, how can I say, the fun and the what is the word? Interest sounds a little bit boring. The interest that you bring to that. Sorry, there was another comment. He silently complains about the money. The money? What kind of money? I don't know what he's talking. I don't know what that means. What kind of money? Anyways, all right. Okay, so that's basically it. We're already at 1.5 hours. So that was a lot. That was a very intense stream, I would say. I hope your head hasn't exploded yet. Yeah, that's another of my talking streams. Again, I will bring back more creative things soon, also with the videos that I do on YouTube. And also I'm trying to figure out a format for these kind of shorts that I can do. For example, yesterday I realized that the effect that I did with the JPEGs that are floating around that I used for the thumbnail, that could be a video for a short. I have to figure out how to do that. Spent on software. I don't quite understand what that means, to be honest. Spent on software? We had this discussion in my group for like a very short while before I said, hey, stop, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Why is it a problem to spend on software? I don't understand. Like, how is it okay when people say, like, everybody's super okay with buying a camera for $2,000 and buying a lens for another $2,000 and then buying a trip for another $3,000 to take a photo of some distant animal in the forest? You spend thousands of dollars, but then you come home and suddenly, after you spent like, I don't know, $8,000 on that experience to photograph an ice bear or whatever, or an orang-utan in Borneo, or kind of a lion in Africa, suddenly at that moment it becomes difficult to say, and now I spend like $30 more on a software, or like $100 more because I want the picture to be really awesome. Why is that a problem? I don't understand. The software is not like a one-time use thing. You can use it for as long as you want. I don't get this discussion about we have to save on software. The software is where you make your own pictures amazing, where the picture comes alive. This is the second part of the equation. The first part is being there and taking the photo. That's half of the picture, and the other half is making it look amazing. So why would you spend all of the money on the first part and then save and be frugal on the second part that actually creates the story in the picture? I don't get that. I don't understand the discussion. Not that I don't say you're saying that. It's just an argument that some people have where they say, no, suddenly the software is expensive. I don't understand that. I don't get that. Sandra says, I don't get it either. The software aids my artistic development, but others often don't understand the need. Yeah. I see it like that, if you buy a software, nobody says you have to upgrade afterwards. Of course, there's subscription things. I know some people get upset about that. But if you spend like 200 or 300 euros on a very good software like Capture One, which I don't have, it's pretty expensive, but I bought Nick Collection and Photolab. It's a one-time purchase. Nobody says you have to upgrade afterwards. You can use it for 10 years. You can use it for the rest of your life if you want to. But you have really good software at that point. And I would say have a range of software, not just one software. Because Affinity Photo is really, really good at some things, but it's not good at all of the things. Just like not everything, like just because you have your favorite, I don't know, I'm bad with examples. Just because you have a fork doesn't mean you don't need a spoon afterwards, because you can't eat the soup with a fork, That's the thing here, right? So some software is really good for that kind of photo, but not so great for that other photo, so you need a different software for that other photo. That's basically, and I think some people, I think that the people who like try to save on software, they don't really get the concept. They think you can do everything with one software, because somehow, if you just invest enough time and you're just good enough at learning the software, you somehow can do all of these things in just one tool. And that's just not true. That's just not how things work. This is like saying, well, if you're just good enough a musician, you can play everything on just one guitar. You don't need 10 different guitars. One guitar is enough. That's not true. That's not how it works. Every guitar is different, right? Or every kind of, I don't know. You know what I mean. Is Nick Collection a plugin? You can use it as a plugin. I think you can also use it as a standalone, which I usually don't. I use it mostly in context with Photolab, to be honest. Because Photolab is really good for raw development, and Nick Collection is really good for this kind of analog, really beautiful effects, and then Affinity Photo is really good to clean up the picture, remove all the things you don't want to have, and then make also finer, more controlled adjustments. Because especially Nick Collection, I don't know why I didn't talk about Nick Collection at all, because most of the filters, they are developed towards the result rather than what you technically actually do. So the sliders tell you this is the outcome. They don't tell you what they're actually doing most of the time. My cat is coughing in the background. I'm not sure if you can hear that. What I was saying? Oh yeah, and Affinity Photo, because it's very technically built, it allows you to precisely adjust things when you know the technical background and how to get these kind of results. So you say, I want to have a little bit of a change here. Like in this kind of color channel, I want to have it a little bit different. Or this kind of in the curve. Of course, you have a curve in Photolab, so that's maybe not a good example. Yeah, but you know what I mean. All these kind of adjustments. Eric says, look to the other before from Sandra Smith. What did she say? Did I miss something that Sandra was saying? Why can't I scroll here? 1 second. Where's my chat window? Did I miss something you said? Really? Does not need to know. No, I have read that. But the size of the screen can impact this. Yeah, I've read that. Lumi, I've read that. To my husband, silent complaints about spending the software. No, I've read all of those, so I'm not quite sure what that means. Okay. Whew. All right. I think we have talked about a lot of amazing things today. I hope it was interesting for you. It was pretty intense, pretty futuristic also. Um, yeah, let's see where that story goes and what to do with that. And I'm really like, as you know, I'm a huge geek, so I'm very interested in all of these kind of developments, and I can't wait for them to become more common so we can all play with them. And I personally also want to play with them a lot more, to figure out what kind of things you can do. One thing I personally want to try, I'm not sure this is right for my channel, but I personally want to try to play with the AR overlays that you can create, for example, for things like Instagram and stuff like that. There is software that is apparently pretty easy to use where you can do amazing things. I just like overlay things onto your face or stuff like that. Pretty nice effects. So I want to play around with that a little bit. This is usually used for video, for these little TikTok clips or whatever. But I think there's a pretty good use case, a pretty good purpose for them in photography too. We have that a little bit in your smartphone, where it tries to, for example, give you a little bit of makeup or make you look a little bit prettier, or adjust your face and your body shape or whatever a little bit while you photograph. But I think we can do a lot more with that will be really interesting. Okay, anyways, I think that's everything for today. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. It was really amazing to see you again, read you again in the chat. I hope this was interesting for you too. And of course, see you in my next video on Tuesday, right? Yes. Also, by the way, the next creative pack, the next content for me is also coming still for June. As you know, I have been in London and LA, so I didn't really have time to work there on that, but I'm still working on that. So, yeah, that's still coming for June. And of course, for July, another thing. Before you go, I'm working on a live workshop. This is the next big thing that's coming, because I've done these pre-recorded workshop, but I want to do a live workshop with you. So I'm really working on that. And this is going to be the thing for July. So look forward to that. Yeah. And yeah, you can, of course, give me feedback or any kind of other ideas in the Facebook group mainly. By the way, if you are not in my Facebook group or haven't visited for a time, I started posting more about my everyday life and my everyday artistic process also in the Facebook group. So this is also becoming a thing where I include myself as a person more into the process, because the artistic journey is as important as the techniques that you use to edit the photos, because then you can put it in relation and things are a lot more, have a lot more sense and purpose, right? And of course, everybody loves a good story. So yeah, and I'm trying this first in my Facebook group. So if you want to check that out, come over to my Facebook group. And if you're already a member, visit it again and post something amazing. All right, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon. Bye.